A very good morning to one and all. Once again, welcome back to Geography class. In this class, we are going to talk and discuss about the chapter number 2. Let's proceed. Chapter number 2, Forest and Wildlife Resources. This chapter, from the CBSE side, from the curriculum, it has been stated about that this chapter is going to be asked in the internal examination, like the periodic assessment and the monthly test. Not a single question is going to ask from this chapter in the board examination of 2022. Dear cadet, please make a notes. Once again, I am repeating this information for your convenience. Chapter number 2, Forest and Wildlife Resources. This chapter is not going to be part of your annual examination. This chapter is going to be assessed in the internal examination, just as the PT and the monthly test. So today, in our topic of discussion, we are going to have the following points which are represented here. First, we are going to have the introduction of this chapter. In the introduction of the chapter, we are going to talk about the forest and the wildlife, which are the very valuable resource for us. Next, we are going to have a discussion on flora and fauna in India. After that, we are going to see the International Union for Conservation of Nature Natural Resources. That means the IUCN. Dear cadet, let's proceed. We share this planet with the millions of other living beings, starting from microorganisms and bacteria, legends, to the banyan trees, elephants and the blue whale. This entire habit that we live in the immense biodiversity. So the biodiversity, what is the meaning of biodiversity? It's already clear to you, but still in the upcoming slides we are going to do the discussion on this. We human, along with all the living organisms, form a complex web of ecological system in which we are only a part and very much depend on the system for our own existence. Next, for example, we are taking the plants, animals and microorganisms, recreate the quality of the air we breathe, the water we drink, the soil that we produce our food, without which we cannot survive or live. Forests play a key role in the ecological system, as these are also the primary producer on which all living beings depend. So next, moving further to see more about the forest and wildlife resources. Biodiversity. So what's the meaning of biodiversity? Or biological diversity is immensely rich in the wildlife and cultivated species, diverse in form and function but closely integrated in a system through the multiple network of interdependency. So here means about that the biodiversity, that means the richness of flora and fauna in a particular region. Moving further, flora and fauna in India. Flora denotes to the plant species and fauna in India. That fauna means the animal. If you will look around, you will be able to find that there are some animals and plants which are unique in your area. In fact, India is one of the world's richest country in terms of its vast array of biological diversity. This is possibly twice or thrice the number yet to be discovered. You have already studied in detail about the extent and variety of forest and wildlife resource in India. That means in 9th standard already we had talked and discussed about the natural vegetation and wildlife, the chapter number 5 of geography. In that we have deeply discussed about the types of forest, about the flora and fauna, the different facts and figure already we are knowing about. Next, you have realized the importance of these resources in our day-to-day life. Moving further to see about the diverse flora and fauna are so well integrated in our daily life that we take these for granted. But lately, they are under great stress mainly due to intensity of our environment. So moving further to see about more points. Some estimates suggest that at least 10% of India's recorded wild flora and 20% of its mammal are on the threatened list. That means they are in danger. This slide is representing about the many of this world be categorized as a critical. The critical that is on the verge of extinctions like cheetah, pink-headed ducks, mountain quails, the forest spotted voles, and the plant like madhua, which is a wild variety of mahua. So all these slide is speaking to you about the forest and the wildlife resources are very important. If we are not going to take care of it, so they are going to be no more in our world. So going to see about, in fact, no one can say how many of the species have already been lost. Today, we only talk of the larger and more visible animal and plants that have become extinct. But what about the smaller animals like insect and plants? So let's check out. This is the presenting slide for to you to understand about vanishing forests. Due to human need and greed, the forests are vanishing from our world. It's a major reason that the deforestation, which means about cutting of trees in a large number. So here the facts and figure is stating the points, and according to the State of Forest Report 2015, the data speaks about the dense forest cover has increased by this since 2003. An increase in the forest cover is due to the conservation measure managed innovation and plantation, etc. by different agencies. Next, we are going to see about the different types of species which are categorizing into different. Let us now understand the different categories of existing plants and animal species based on IUCN. Dear cadet, there can be a 1 marks question for you. Write the full form of IUCN. In that you have to write about International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources. So we can classify as follow. First point, normal species. So what are normal species here? So normal species which population level is considered to be normal for their survival, such as the cattle, sal, pine, rodent, etc. Moving further to see more. Endangered species. These are the species which are in danger of extinction. The survival of species is difficult if the negative factor that have led to a decline in their population continue to operate. So the example of that one is stating here. So all the example just like black buck, crocodile, Indian wildlife, you can go around it. These are all the species which are in endanger. Next, moving further to see the next. Vulnerable species. These are the species whose populations are declined to the level from where it is likely to move into the endangered category in the near future of. That means we are talking about the negative factor which continue to operate. Other example of it is given here, just like the blue ship, Asiatic elephant, Gangetic dolphin, etc. Next, rare species. So what are rare species? The species with a small population may move into the endangered or vulnerable category if the negative factor affecting them continues to operate them. So the examples has been given here. Just the species of the Himalaya brown bear, wild Asiatic buffalo, the desert fox and the hornbill, etc. So dear cadet, these species you have to read out in detail so you can understand about. Next, endemic species. These are the species which are found in some particular area only. Usually, they are isolated by the natural or the geographical barrier. For example, we are at such species That means the Andaman teal, Nicobar pigeon, Andaman wild pig, mithun in Arunachal Pradesh. Now the last one is talking about the extinct species. These are the species which are not found after the research of known or likely area where they may occur. So that means they are no more in the world. A species may be extinct from a local region or an area, country, continent, or an entire earth. Examples such species are the Asiatic cheetah, pink-headed duck. Next, dear cadet, out of this whole classification, it can be have 5 marks question in the examination, or maybe for the 3 marks. You have to draw the table, write the name of all the species, about their definition, and what are the different animals are there, and they are in that species. You have to write like that. So the tabular format is going to make you understand very quickly and very easy to memorize it. If you will look around, you will be able to find out how have transformed nature into a resource obtained directly and indirectly from the forest and wildlife, just like wood, bark, leaf, rubber, medicine, dye, food, fuel, fodder, manure, etc. So by this, and you can understand what's the major role this flora and fauna is playing in our day-to-day life. So it is we ourselves who have depleted our forests and wildlife. The greatest damage inflicted on Indian forests was during the colonial period, due to the expansion of the railways, agriculture, commercial and scientific forestry and mining activities. So these are the topics which you can highlight. They were the main causes for the depletion of the forest and wildlife in India. Even after independence, agriculture expansion continues to be one of the major causes of the deforestation or the depletion or exploitation of the forest we can speak about. So the forest resources are depleted. Between 1951 to 1918, according to the Forest Survey of India, over 2600 square kilometer of the forest was converted into agricultural land. All over India, subsequently, part of the tribal belt, especially in the northeastern and the central India, have been deforested or degraded by shifting cultivation, which we are going to understand it in a detailed way in the chapter number 4, agriculture. It's also called as slash or burning agriculture, slash or burn agriculture, or zoom or zooming cultivation. Next, large-scale development projects have also contributed significantly to the loss of forest. Since 1951, over 5,000 square kilometers of the forest was cleared by River Valley project. That means creating dam, or it's going to be called as multi-purpose river valley project. That we are going to understand in the chapter number 3, water resources. Clearing of forests is still continue with the projects like Narmada Sagar project in Madhya Pradesh, which would endure 40,000 hectares of forest. Mining is another important factor behind the deforestation. The Boxer Tiger Reserve in West Bengal is seriously threatened by ongoing dolomite mining. That's one type of mineral, dolomite. It has disturbed the natural habitat of many species and blocked the migration routes of several and others, including the great Indian elephant. So dear cadet, by raising this particular point, we are understanding about how the human need and human greed is exploiting our valuable flora and fauna. Next, many foresters and environmentalists hold the view that the greatest degrading factor behind the depletion of forest resource are grazing and fuel wood collection. You can highlight these points in examination when it's going to be asked what are the factors responsible for the depletion of forest and wildlife. Though there are some substance in the argument, yet the fact remains that a substantial part of the fuel fodder demand is met by lopping rather than by felling the entire trees. That means just shading the leaf, not cutting the entire tree, just trimming it. The forest ecosystem are repositories of some of the country's most valuable forest product, mineral and other resources that meet the demand of the rapidly expanding industrial urban economy. These protected areas thus means different things to the different people, and therein lie the fertile ground for conflict. So in a simple word, different activities of human being is shown here, which are the major cause for the depletion of the flora and fauna, which are the major cause for degrading this valuable resource. Habitat destruction, hunting, poaching, overexploitation, environmental pollution, poisoning, and forest fire are the factors which had led to the decline in the India's biodiversity. So please, these all the points which I read just now, these are the factors which are responsible for decline in the India's biodiversity. So in examination then can be question over there for 3 marks, describe the different factors which are responsible for decline of biodiversities in India. So you have to mention these points. Next, moving further, other important causes of environmental destruction are unequal access, inequitable consumption of resource, and differential sharing of responsibility for our environmental well-being. Next point, we are going to talk about overpopulation in the third world countries. It's often cited as a causes of environmental degradation. The burden of the population is also degrading this. However, an average American consumes 40 times more resource than an average Solomon. So Somalians point and American point you can highlight here. Similarly, the richest 5% of the Indian society probably cause more ecological damage because the amount they consume than the poorest 25%. The former shares minimum responsibility for environmental well-being. The question is, who is consuming what, from where and how much? Please think about that and let me know that. The concluding point, the destruction of the forest and the wildlife is not just a biological issue. The biological loss is strongly correlated with the loss of cultural diversity. Such the losses have increasingly marginalized and impoverished many indigenous and other forest-dependent communities who directly depend on the various components of the forest and wildlife for the food, drink, medicine, culture, spiritually, etc. Within the poor, women are affected more than the men. In many societies, women bear the major responsibility for collection of the fuel, fodder, water and other basic substances needed. So this point is talking about the women. They are engaged and affected more than the men by collecting all the basic needs of their livelihood. Next, as these resources are depleted, the drudgery of the women's increase. That means the daily chore or the routine has been increased. Sometimes they have to walk for more than 10 kilometers to collect these resources. So dear cadet, please have attention on this point. This causes serious health problem for the women and negligence of the home, children because of increased hours of work, which often has a serious social implication. The indirect impact of degradation, such as the severe drought or the deforestation, include floods, etc., also hit the poorest the hardest. Poverty in these cases is a direct outcome of environmental destruction. Therefore, forest and wildlife are the vital to the quality of life and environment in the subcontinent, that means in India. It is the imperative to adopt the sound forest and wildlife conservation strategies. So last, I want to tell you about that this chapter is very simple in nature to understand. I request you please read it very properly. If you are facing any doubt and difficulty, please ask to me. And I am happy that the students, those who are outstation, they are asking number of the doubts and difficulties. They are sending their homework also. Those who are still remaining, please do it and send it to me. Lastly, thanking to each and everyone for watching this video. if you haven't subscribed my channel, please subscribe it so that all the videos you can have it and you can benefit. Thanking to each and everyone. Jai Hind to one and all. Be safe and secure at your home.